What would you sacrifice if it meant saving the people you love? Ethan learned the answer to that question when he was just 15 years old. And the cost? Everything. His childhood, his dream, his entire future. But here's the twist. Nobody tells you about sacrifice. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't giving everything away. It's figuring out what to do with yourself when there's nothing left. It's 5 a.m. on a Tuesday, and Ethan's apartment looks exactly the same as it did 17 years ago. Same worn couch with the duct-taped armrest. Same scratched kitchen table. Same flickering light in the hallway that he keeps meaning to fix, but never does. The only thing that's changed is the man sitting in the darkness, staring at a photograph like it, holds the answers to questions he's too afraid to ask. In the photo, two young people are beaming in graduation caps and gowns. Alex and Mia, 27 years old now, thriving, living the lives they were always meant to live. And standing between them, looking proud, but somehow hollow, is Ethan, 32 years old, but his eyes tell a different story. They tell the story of a boy who became a man too fast, who raised children when he was barely more than a child himself, who gave away pieces of his soul until he forgot he was allowed to keep some for himself. He sets the photo down, checks his watch. Time to start another day of just existing, because that's what Ethan does now. He exists. He doesn't live. There's a difference, and he knows it. But knowing something and changing it are two very different things. The construction site is loud, chaotic, exactly the kind of place where you can disappear into the noise, and nobody asks questions. Ethan's good at his job. Reliable, skilled, efficient. His co-workers respect him, but they don't really know him. How could they? He's perfected the art of being present without actually being there. Small talk about the weather. Nods at the right moments. A polite smile that never quite reaches his eyes. But Miguel sees through it. Miguel always sees through it. Another Friday night, alone with your microwave dinner, hermano. Miguel jokes, leaning against the scaffolding during lunch break. Come out with us, just once. Have a beer. Meet some people. Remember what fun feels like. Ethan shakes his head. Same answer he always gives. I'm good, man. Thanks, though. You're not good, Miguel says. And his voice loses the playful edge. You're 32, not 72. When was the last time you actually did something for yourself? The question hits harder than Miguel probably intended. When was the last time? Ethan can't remember. Maybe never. I'm fine, Ethan lies. And Miguel knows it's a lie. But he doesn't push. Not yet. That night, Ethan goes through the motions. Jim, microwave dinner, sits on that same worn couch. The apartment is so quiet, he can hear his own heartbeat. He should be used to it by now. The silence, the emptiness. He raised Alex and Mia in this space. But back then, it was full of life. Homework scattered on the table. Laughter echoing off the walls. The chaos of trying to be a parent when you're barely old enough to drive. Now it's just a tomb of memories. His phone buzzes. Video call from Alex and Mia. He straightens up, puts on the mask he's been wearing for years, and answers with a smile that looks almost real. "Ethan, how are you?" Mia's voice is bright, full of the kind of joy that comes from living a life you actually want. She's in medical school, brilliant, driven, everything he hoped she'd become. "I'm great. How's school treating you?" They talk for 20 minutes. Alex shares stories about his students. He's a teacher now, making a difference in kids' lives. Mia complains about her anatomy exam, but does it with the kind of passion that shows she loves what she's doing. They ask about Ethan, and he feeds them the lines they need to hear. "Work's good. He's thinking about taking a vacation soon." Things fine? They believe him because they need to. Because the alternative, accepting that their brother sacrificed everything and got nothing in return, is too painful to acknowledge. When the call ends, the mask drops. The smile fades, and Ethan sits in the suffocating silence, staring at the walls that have witnessed every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dream he buried so his siblings could chase theirs. "I saved them," he whispers to no one. "But who's going to save me?" The answer, of course, is nobody, because nobody knows he needs saving. He's too good at pretending he doesn't. But across the city, in an office that smells like cheap coffee and desperation, someone is fighting a different kind of battle. Clara Martinez, 29 years old, social worker specializing in foster care, is reviewing a file that's been marked difficult placement in red ink. The kid's name is Jayden Thompson, 14 years old. Parents incarcerated. 3 foster homes in 6 months. Behavioral issues. Anger problems. Nobody wants him. Clara's supervisor, a tired woman named Patricia who stopped believing in happy endings years ago, drops another file on Clara's desk. "I'm reassigning the Thompson case. You're getting too emotionally involved." "I'm not." "You are," Patricia interrupts. "You take these lost causes personally, Clara. You can't save everyone." Clara's jaw tightens. He's not a lost cause. He's a scared kid. He's a liability. 3 homes, Clara. 3. He's running out of options. "Then I'll find him options," Clara says, and there's steel in her voice that surprises even herself. She grew up in this system. She knows what it's like to be the kid nobody wants, bouncing from home to home, convinced you're fundamentally unlovable. She became a social worker to be the person she never had. And she's not giving up on Jayden. Not now. Not ever. That afternoon, she visits Jayden at his current placement. The foster parents meet her at the door with crossed arms and matching expressions of exhaustion. "He punched a hole in the wall yesterday," the foster father says. "We can't do this anymore." Clara nods, professional, understanding, but inside she's screaming. Another home, another rejection, another confirmation of what Jayden already believes about himself. She finds him in the backyard, sitting on the ground with his knees pulled to his chest, hood up, shutting out the world. When he sees her approaching, his whole body tenses. "Go away." "Not happening," Clara says, sitting down beside him. "Not too close. Just close enough." "You here to move me again?" "Cool. Where's the next dump I get to pretend is home?" Clara's heart breaks, but she keeps her voice steady. "I'm here to find you someone who actually gives a damn. Someone who shows up. Someone who understands what it's like when the world gives up on you." Jayden laughs, bitter and broken. "Good luck with that." "I don't believe in luck," Clara says. "I believe in people who've been through hell and came out the other side, wanting to help others avoid the flames." She doesn't know it yet, but she's describing Ethan. Back at the construction site the next day, Miguel is unusually persistent. He corners Ethan during the afternoon break, phone in hand, showing him something on the screen. "The mentorship program I volunteer with," Miguel says. "They're desperate for mentors, especially for the tough cases." "Good for them," Ethan says, trying to walk away. "There's this kid, Jayden, 14. Lost his parents. Systems failing him, angry at the world. Keeps getting rejected because he's too much work." Ethan stops walking. "Sound familiar?" Miguel asks quietly, and just like that, Ethan is 15 again, standing in the ashes of his childhood home, holding his 10-year siblings' hands, hearing relatives say they couldn't take all three of them, feeling the world decide he was too much, too broken, too complicated. "I can't," Ethan says, but his voice cracks. "One meeting," Miguel presses. "Just meet the social worker. Hear the kid's story. Then decide." Ethan wants to say no. He's practiced at saying no, at keeping the world at arm's length, at protecting what little is left of himself. But something in Jayden's story has already cracked his armor, and Miguel knows it. "One meeting?" Ethan finally agrees. That's it. 3 days later, Ethan walks into the community center with every intention of walking right back out. He's done raising kids. He gave 12 years of his life to being a parent when he should have been figuring out who he was. He has nothing left to give. Nothing? Then he sees her. Clara is standing near the window, reviewing notes, sunlight catching in her hair. When she looks up and smiles, warm, genuine, like she actually means it, something in Ethan's chest tightens. "You must be Ethan," she says, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming." Her grip is firm. Her eyes are kind, but sharp, like she can see through every wall he's built. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for this," Ethan admits immediately, because lying to her feels impossible. "Why not? I already raised kids. I'm not really looking to do it again." Clara studies him for a moment, and Ethan has the unsettling feeling that she's reading the story written in the lines of his face, the exhaustion in his posture, the grief he carries like a second skin. "This isn't about raising him," she says gently. It's just about showing up, being present, letting him know someone cares. What if I mess it up? Then you'll be like the rest of us. Human. There's something about her directness, her refusal to sugarcoat or make empty promises, that puts Ethan slightly at ease. She's real. She's not selling him hope or guilt-tripping him into heroism. She's just stating facts. She tells him about Jayden, about the incarcerated parents, about the foster homes that kept giving up, about a kid who believes no one will ever choose him. And Ethan sees himself 15 years old, terrified, abandoned. What happened to his parents? He asks, voice barely above a whisper. They're in prison. Jayden feels like they chose drugs over him. He's convinced no one will ever choose him. Ethan's throat tightens. He knows that feeling intimately. The belief that you're fundamentally unwanted. That love is something other people get, but never you. Okay, he hears himself say, I'll try. Clara's smile is genuine, relieved, surprised. Thank you. Really. Most people walk away. Yeah, well, Ethan meets her eyes. I know what it's like when people walk away. Clara studies him for a long moment, and Ethan knows she sees it. The pain, the history, the scars. But she doesn't push. She just nods, understanding passing between them like silent contract. Neither of them knows it yet, but this moment, this decision, is about to change everything. For Ethan, for Clara, for Jayden, for all of them. Because sometimes the act of showing up for someone else is actually the first step in showing up for yourself. But here's the question that'll keep you up at night. Can a man who spent his entire life saving others finally learn to save himself? Or is it really too late for second chances? Week 1. And Jayden looks at Ethan like he's already counting down the days until he leaves. The community center's fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows across the worn linoleum floor. Ethan sits across from a 14-year-old kid whose entire body language screams one message. I dare you to care about me, so I can prove you'll leave too. Jayden's arms are crossed, hood pulled low over his eyes, leg bouncing with nervous energy that has nowhere to go but inward, turning into rage, into pain, into the kind of armor you build when the world has taught you that vulnerability gets punished. So what? You're supposed to fix me or something. Jayden's voice drips with sarcasm, but underneath it, Ethan hears something else. Fear, the same fear he felt at 15 when he realized no one was coming to save him. I'm not here to fix you, Ethan says quietly. I'm just here. Yeah, right. That's what they all say. Then something better comes along, and suddenly they're not here anymore. Ethan doesn't flinch, doesn't offer empty promises, just meets Jayden's hostile gaze with something the kid doesn't expect. Understanding. I'll be here next week, Ethan says simply. Same time, same place. Jayden scoffs. We'll see. That's how it starts. Not with a breakthrough, not with tears, and hugs and immediate transformation. But with a man who knows what it's like to be abandoned, showing up for a kid who's learned not to expect anyone to stay. The question is, how long can Ethan keep showing up before his own wounds start bleeding through? Because here's what nobody tells you about helping broken people when you're still broken yourself. Sometimes their pain reminds you of everything you've been running from. And Ethan, he's been running for 17 years. Week 2. Jayden is 20 minutes late. When he finally slouches into the room, he's clearly testing boundaries, waiting for Ethan to be angry, to give up, to prove what Jayden already believes, that he's too much work, too difficult, too damaged to be worth anyone's time. But Ethan just looks up from the book he's been reading and nods. Traffic? Jayden blinks, thrown off balance. What? Traffic. That's why you're late, right? The kid's jaw tightens. I'm late because I don't want to be here. Okay, Ethan says, and goes back to his book. That's it? You're not gonna lecture about respecting your time or whatever. You're here now. That's what matters. Jayden stares at him, trying to figure out the angle, the manipulation, the catch. Because in his experience, adults always have an agenda. But Ethan just sits there, patient, present, like he's got all the time in the world. Like Jayden is worth waiting for. It's such a foreign concept that Jayden doesn't know what to do with it. So he does what he always does. He attacks. My social worker probably told you about me, right? About how I'm a problem. About the homes I've been kicked out of. About my parents choosing drugs over me. That's why you're here, isn't it? You feel sorry for me? Ethan closes his book, slowly. You want to know why I'm here? Yeah, actually, I do. I'm here because when I was 15, my parents died, and I spent the next 12 years raising my 10-year-old siblings by myself, and nobody showed up for me. Not one person. So yeah, when I heard about a kid who needed someone to show up, I figured maybe I could be what I never had. The words land like a bomb in the space between them. Jayden's hostility falters, just for a second, and in that second, Ethan sees the real kid underneath all that armor. The scared, hurt, desperate to be loved kid who's so afraid of being rejected that he rejects everyone first. My parents are still alive, Jayden finally says, voice cracking. They're just in prison. So what does that say about me? That they're alive, but they still didn't choose me. There it is, the wound that defines everything. It says they were broken, Ethan says softly. Not you, them. Jayden looks away, blinking hard. Whatever. This is stupid. But he doesn't leave. He stays for the full hour. And when Ethan says see you next week, Jayden doesn't scoff this time. He just nods and walks out. And Ethan sits alone in that room, wondering if he's actually helping this kid, or just reopening his own wounds. Maybe both. Probably both. After the session, Ethan finds Clara waiting in the hallway. She's leaning against the wall, coffee in hand, looking tired, but hopeful in that way that suggests she hasn't been completely destroyed by this job yet. When she sees him, her face lights up with genuine curiosity. How'd it go? He showed up. That's something. That's everything, Clara corrects. She pushes off the wall, falling into step beside him as they head toward the exit. Most mentors quit after the first session with kids like Jayden. The fact that you're still here means something. It's only been 2 weeks. Exactly. 2 weeks is longer than most people last. They end up at a coffee shop 3 blocks away. One of those places with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls that screams trying too hard to be quirky, but somehow works anyway. It's supposed to be a quick debrief about Jayden's progress, but somehow they've been talking for an hour, and the conversation has drifted far away from professional territory. Clara tells him about a case she worked last year. A little girl who'd been through 6 homes before Clara found her a permanent placement with a single mom who'd also grown up in foster care. She sends me drawings sometimes, Clara says, smiling at the memory. Crayon masterpieces of her new family. It's those moments that keep me going. You know, when you see a kid finally find their place. Do they all find their place? Ethan asks. Clara's smile fades slightly. No, not all of them. Some age out of the system with nothing. Some end up on the streets. Some. She trails off, and Ethan can see the weight of every kid she couldn't save pressing down on her shoulders. He recognizes it because he carries the same weight. Different kids, different circumstances, same crushing responsibility. You can't save everyone, he says, echoing what her supervisor probably tells her daily. I know, but I have to try. Why? Clara looks at him, really looks at him. And for a moment, he thinks she won't answer. Then because I was one of those kids. Foster care from age 7. 11 different homes before I aged out at 18. And I kept waiting for someone who actually gave a damn. And mostly, no one did. So now, I try to be that person. The one who gives a damn. The confession hangs between them, heavy with shared understanding. Ethan feels something shift in his chest. Recognition, maybe. Or connection. Or the terrifying realization that he's not alone in this particular brand of pain. I raised my siblings from 15 to 27, he finds himself saying. Worked 2 jobs, went to every school event, taught them everything I knew. And now they're living their lives, which is exactly what I wanted, but he stops, unsure how to articulate the emptiness. But you don't know what to do with yourself now that your purpose is fulfilled. Clara finishes for him. Yeah, exactly that. She reaches across the table, fingers brushing his hand. It's brief, barely a touch, but it sends electricity through his entire body. How long has it been since someone touched him with intention? With care? Your purpose doesn't have to be fulfilled, she says softly. Maybe it's just evolving. Ethan wants to believe her. God, he wants to believe her. But 17 years of sacrifice have taught him that wanting something and having it are 2 entirely different things. The weeks bleed into each other. Week 3, Jayden actually arrives on time and makes eye contact for a full 30 seconds. Week 4, he asks Ethan about his job, and they spend an hour talking about construction, about building things, about how Ethan wanted to be an engineer once upon a time but never got the chance. Week 5, Jayden brings his math homework and asks for help. And Ethan's heart does something complicated in his chest, because he remembers helping Alex and Mia with homework at this same scarred table 20 years ago, exhausted from his night shift, but determined to be present. And after each session, Clara is there. Sometimes they grab coffee. Sometimes they just walk through the neighborhood, talking about everything and nothing. She tells him about the foster mom who used to lock the food cabinets. He tells her about working construction at 16 with a fake ID because no one would hire a kid, even a kid trying to feed his family. She tells him about community college and working 3 jobs, and the professor who told her she'd never make it. He tells her about the night Mia got into college and how he cried in the bathroom because he was so proud and so terrified that he'd done everything wrong. They're both survivors, both carrying scars, both trying to figure out what healing looks like when you've spent your entire life in crisis mode. Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions? Clara asks one evening as they walk through the park. Fall is settling in, leaves crunching under their feet, the air carrying that particular chill that promises winter is coming. Every single day, Ethan admits. How do you keep going? I don't know. Habit, maybe. Or the fact that not going isn't really an option. Clara stops walking, turns to face him. The streetlights cast shadows across her face, making her look both young and ancient, both strong and fragile. That's not living, Ethan. That's just surviving. What's the difference? Living is when you actually want to wake up in the morning, when you have something to look forward to, when you let yourself feel joy, instead just the absence of pain. And you feel that way? She's quiet for a long moment. I'm trying to. Some days are better than others. Today, she glances at him, something vulnerable in her eyes. Today is one of the better ones. The implication hangs between them, unspoken but understood. Ethan's breath catches. He should, say something. He should acknowledge what's happening here. This connection that's growing between them like a plant pushing through concrete. But fear closes his throat. What if he lets her in and he's not enough? What if he's already given away all the good parts of himself? What if race you to the fountain? Clara suddenly laughs, breaking the tension, and takes off running like a kid, and Ethan finds himself chasing her, actually running, actually laughing. The first time in God knows how long. And when they collapse on the fountain's edge, breathless and grinning, he realizes something terrifying. He's happy. Right now, in this moment, he's actually happy. And he has no idea what to do with that feeling. But good things don't last. They never do. Ethan learned that lesson when he was 15, and life keeps reinforcing it, just in case he gets any ideas about hope. Week 7. Jayden doesn't show up. Ethan waits the full hour, checking his phone every 3 minutes, trying not to panic. When Clara comes to check on them, she finds Ethan alone, and the look on his face makes her immediately pull out her phone. I'll call his foster parents. The news isn't good. Jayden got into a fight at school, punched another kid who said something about his parents. He's suspended for a week, and his foster parents are discussing their options, which is code for, "We're done with this kid. I need to see him Ethan says immediately. That's not protocol. I don't care about protocol. If he thinks I'm abandoning him too, it'll confirm everything he believes about himself. Clara studies him, then makes a decision that could cost her career. I'll take you, but if anyone asks, this didn't happen. They drive to Jayden's foster home in Clara's beat-up Honda, and the tension in the car is thick enough to choke on. Ethan's hands are clenched in his lap, knuckles white, and Clara keeps glancing at him with concern. He's going to be okay, she says. You don't know that. No, but I choose to believe it anyway. The alternative is giving up, and I don't do that. When they arrive, the foster parents are exactly as welcoming as Ethan expected. Which is to say, not at all. They clearly see Ethan as another well-meaning volunteer who does understand what it's really like to deal with kids like Jayden. But Clara works her social worker magic, and they reluctantly allow a brief visit. Jayden is in his room, music blasting, door closed. When Ethan knocks, there's no answer. He knocks again. Go away. It's Ethan. Silence. Then, quieter. You shouldn't be here. But I am. The door opens a crack. Jayden's face is a mess. Split lip, bruise forming under his eye, and something worse, shame. Deep, crushing shame. I screwed up, Jayden says, voice barely audible. I know. You can leave now. Everyone else does. Ethan gently pushes the door open wider. I'm not everyone else. Yeah, right. I bet you're thinking I'm just another violent foster kid who's too broken to save. You know what I'm thinking. Ethan steps into the room, and something in his voice makes Jayden actually look at him. I'm thinking about the time I was 17, and one of my bosses made a comment about my sister, and I put him through a wall, got fired, almost got arrested, and I had 2 kids depending on me, and I almost threw it all away because I was angry and hurt and didn't know how to process any of it. Jayden stares. You did that? I did. And it didn't make me violent or broken. It made me human, which is what you are, Jayden. Human. Not perfect, not a saint. Just a kid who's been hurt and doesn't know how to handle it yet. I'm gonna get kicked out again. The words come out choked. This my 3rd strike. They're done with me. Then we'll figure something else out. Why do you even care? It's the question Ethan's been asking himself. And he finally has an answer. Because 20 years ago, I needed someone to care about me, and no one did. And I survived, but barely. And I don't want you to just barely survive, Jayden. I want you to actually live. When Jayden breaks, really breaks, sobs that shake his entire body. 17 years of abandonment and pain pouring out all at once. And Ethan does what no one did for him. He pulls this kid into a hug and doesn't let go, even when Jayden tries to push him away, even when the kid's tears soak through his shirt, even when every instinct screams at Ethan to protect himself from more pain. I'm not leaving, Ethan says firmly. You hear me? I'm not leaving. And for the first time in his life, Jayden lets himself believe that maybe, just maybe, someone actually means it. Clara watches from the doorway, tears streaming down her own face, and when Ethan finally emerges 20 minutes later, she doesn't say anything. She just reaches for his hand and squeezes. And that simple gesture says everything words can't. They sit in her car for a long time, neither of them ready to face the world yet. "That was incredible," Clara finally whispers. "That was terrifying. You gave him what you never had. What if it's not enough?" Ethan's voice cracks. "What if I can't save him?" "You're not supposed to save him," Clara says, turning to face him fully. "You're just supposed to show him he's worth saving." "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes. Because one puts all the pressure on you, and the other empowers him to save himself." Ethan closes his eyes, exhaustion crashing over him like a wave. He's so tired. Tired of carrying everything. Tired of being strong. Tired of pretending he's okay when he's barely holding it together. "I don't know if I can do this," he admits. "Yes, you can." "How do you know?" "Because you're already doing it. You're showing up. That's the hardest part. But is showing up enough when the system is designed to fail kids like Jayden? That's the question that haunts Ethan over the next few weeks as Clara fights to keep Jayden in his current placement. The foster parents are adamant. One more incident, any incident, and they're done. It's an impossible standard for a traumatized 14-year-old, and everyone knows it. But the system doesn't care about impossible standards. It just cares about liability and paperwork and covering its ass. Ethan increases his sessions with Jayden to twice a week. They don't just sit and talk anymore. Ethan brings Jayden to the construction site after school, teaches him basic carpentry, lets him work off his anger with a hammer and nails. It's during these afternoons, covered in sawdust and sweat, that Jayden finally starts opening up. "My dad used to work construction," Jayden says one day, sanding down a piece of wood with meticulous focus. "Before the drugs, he gonna teach me when I got older." "What happened?" "Mom got sick, needed surgery. They didn't have insurance, got prescribed pain pills. And then," Jayden shrugs, but his hands shake. "You know how it goes. Pills led to other stuff. Stealing to pay for the other stuff. Prison." "I'm sorry." "Everyone's sorry. But sorry doesn't change anything." "No," Ethan agrees. "It doesn't. But showing up does. Building something does. Choosing to keep going does." "Is that what you did? After your parents died? You just kept going?" "Didn't have a choice. My siblings needed me." "What about what you needed?" The question stops Ethan cold. What about what he needed? No one's ever asked him that. Not once in 17 years has anyone asked what Ethan needed. "I don't know," he finally says honestly. "I guess I never thought about it." "That's messed up." "Yeah, it really is." They work in comfortable silence after that, and Ethan realizes this kid gets it in a way most people never will. They're both survivors of circumstances beyond their control, both trying to build something from the wreckage, both terrified that one wrong move will collapse everything they fought for. That evening, Clara meets them at the site with takeout, burgers and fries from a local place that makes everything fresh. They eat together, the three of them, sitting on stacks of lumber and watching the sun set over the city. Jayden is animated in a way Ethan hasn't seen before, talking about the birdhouse he's building, asking Clara about college, making jokes that actually land. For a moment, they feel like something Ethan hasn't had in years. A family. "This is nice," Jayden says suddenly, and vulnerability flashes across his face before he can hide it. "Like, really nice." "Yeah?" Clara agrees, smiling. "It really is." She catches Ethan's eye, and something passes between them. A understanding, a possibility, a terrifying, exhilarating. What if? What if this could be real? What if they could be something? What if broken people can actually build something beautiful together? But Ethan's learned the hard way that imagining possibilities and living them are two different things. And sure enough, the universe isn't done testing them yet. Week 12, and everything falls apart. It starts with Ethan's boss pulling him aside. "I need you to work weekends for the next month. Big project. Overtime pay. I can't. I have commitments." "What commitments?" "You don't have a family." The words sting more than they should. "I have responsibilities. This job is your responsibility. You want to keep it. You work the weekends. Non-negotiable." Ethan's stuck. He needs this job. It's how he pays rent, how he survives. But missing sessions with Jayden feels like a betrayal. He calls Clara, explains the situation. "We'll figure it out," she assures him. "I'll increase my check-ins with Jayden. We'll tell him you're not abandoning him, just dealing with work." But here's what they don't account for. Jayden's been abandoned before. And no matter how many times you explain that work commitments aren't personal rejection, a traumatized kid only hears one thing: "You chose something else over me." The first weekend Ethan misses, Jayden is okay. Understanding, even. The second weekend, he's quieter. The third weekend, Clara calls Ethan at 11 p.m., voice tight with panic. "Jayden's missing." The world stops. "What do you mean, missing?" "He had an argument with his foster parents about you not showing up. Took off. That was 6 hours ago." Ethan is already grabbing his keys. "Where are you?" Searching his usual spots. The school, the park, I know where he is. Ethan's heart is pounding as he drives across town, breaking every speed limit, praying he's right. Because if he's learned anything from these months with Jayden, it's that traumatized kids don't run toward things. They run back to them. Back to the last place they felt safe. Back to the scene of their original wound. He finds Jayden exactly where he knew he would. Sitting outside his old house. The one he lived in before his parents were arrested. It's been rented out to new tenants now, but Jayden is on the curb across the street, knees pulled to his chest, staring at the lit windows like if he looks long enough, he'll see his parents inside, see a version of his life that doesn't exist anymore. Ethan parks and walks over slowly, sitting down on the curb beside him. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. Then, you weren't supposed to find me, Jayden says. Yeah, well, I'm good at finding people who don't want to be found. I thought you chose work over me. I didn't choose anything. I got cornered into impossible decisions. There's a difference. Doesn't feel different. I know, and I'm sorry. I promised I'd show up, and I couldn't, and that must have felt like every other adult who's let you down. Jayden's shoulders shake. I came back here because I thought if I remembered what it was like before everything went wrong, maybe I could figure out where I belong now. But I don't belong anywhere. Not there. He gestures at the house. Not in that foster home. Not in any home. I'm just temporary. Always temporary. The words shatter something in Ethan's chest, because he knows exactly what Jayden means. That feeling of being a permanent guest in your own life, of never quite fitting anywhere, of building walls so high that even you can't remember what's on the other side. You know what I realized? Ethan says quietly. When I was raising my siblings, I thought my job was to give them a place to belong, and I did. But I forgot to make a place for myself. I forgot that I deserved to belong too, and I've spent the last 5 years existing in that forgetting. So what changed? You did. And Clara. You both reminded me that belonging isn't something you're given. It's something you build, with people who show up for you. With people you show up for. It's not about blood or legal papers or permanent placements. It's about choice. Every single day. Choosing to be there. Jayden finally looks at him. Eyes red and swollen. What if I don't know how to choose that? Then I'll teach you. The same way I'm learning. A car pulls up. Clara, who's been frantically searching, she rushes over, and when she sees them both safe, she nearly collapses with relief. She sits down on Jayden's other side, and the three of them sit there on that curb, forming a unit that looks nothing like a traditional family but feels like one anyway. I'm sorry I scared you, Jayden whispers. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to run, Ethan counters. Clara puts her arms around both of them. We're all learning. That's what family does. They mess up and they figure it out together. That what we are? Jayden asks, voice small. A family. Clara looks at Ethan, and in that moment, a million unspoken things pass between them. Fear, hope, possibility, the terrifying recognition that they're in too deep now to pretend this is just professional. This is personal. This everything. Yeah, Ethan says, and means it. Yeah? I think we are, but the universe isn't done testing them. Because the next morning, Clara gets the call she's been dreading. Jayden's foster parents are done. Officially, completely, they want him removed by the end of the week. Where will he go? Ethan demands when Clara tells him. There's a group home with an opening. No, the word comes out fierce. Absolute. Not a group home. Those places are just holding pens. He needs stability. He needs... What? What does he need, Ethan? because I've been searching for weeks, and there are no foster families willing to take a 14-year-old with a documented behavioral history. Then I'll take him. The words hang in the air, surprising even Ethan. But once they're out, he knows they're true. He wants this, not out of obligation, not out of pity, out of love. When did that happen? When did this kid become his kid? You can't just decide to foster someone, Clara says gently. There's a process. Background checks, home evaluations, training. It takes months. Then we start now. Ethan, I'm serious. I've already raised kids. I have a stable job, a clean record. What's the issue? Clara's face does something complicated. The issue is that you're single, and the system prefers two-parent homes for difficult placements. They'll say you don't have adequate support. That's bullshit. I agree, but it's also reality. They stare at each other, and Ethan can see Clara's mind, working, calculating, weighing options. Finally, she says something that changes everything. What if you weren't single? What? What if we applied together as a unit? We've both been working with Jayden. We've both built relationships with him. Together, we'd have a stronger case. Clara, we're not even dating. I know. But we could be. Couldn't we? The question hangs between them, loaded with 1,000 implications. Are they doing this for Jayden? For themselves? Does it matter? Can something born from necessity still be real? I don't know how to be in a relationship, Ethan admits. I've been alone for so long, I don't remember what it's like to let someone in. Then we'll learn together. We're already halfway there anyway. What if we mess it up? What if I'm not enough? Clara steps closer, close enough that he can see the gold flecks in her eyes, close enough to feel her breath. You keep saying you're not enough. But Ethan, you're the first person in years who's made me feel like maybe I could have more than just my work. Maybe I could have a life, a family, someone to come home to who actually sees me. I see you, he whispers. I know. That's why this terrifies me, as much as it terrifies you. They're standing in Clara's office, surrounded by case files of kids who need families, and they're about to become one of the most unconventional solutions the system has ever seen. Two broken people who found each other while trying to save someone else. It's not a fairy tale. It's messy and complicated and terrifying. But maybe that's what real love looks like. Not the clean, sanitized version from movies. The complicated, scary, choose each other even when it's hard version. The kind of love that builds something from broken pieces. Okay, Ethan says. Let's do that. Clara's supervisor is, predictably, skeptical. They sit in her office 3 days later, presenting their case, and Patricia looks at them like they've lost their minds. You want to become emergency foster parents. Together, after knowing each other for 3 months? Yes, Clara says firmly. Clara, this is highly irregular. You're the caseworker. This violates about 15 different ethical guidelines. Then remove me from the case. Assign someone else. But don't punish Jayden, because Ethan and I happened to find each other while trying to help him. Patricia leans back in her chair, studying them both. Are you two actually together? Or is this just a convenient arrangement to game the system? It's Ethan who answers, surprising even himself. We're together. Maybe we moved fast. Maybe it's unconventional. But what Clara and I have is real, and what we can offer Jayden, stability, understanding, two people who've lived through trauma and came out the other side. That's real too. The board won't like this. The board doesn't have to like it, Clara counters. They just have to approve it. We meet all the requirements. We have stable housing, income, clean backgrounds, and we have something most foster parents don't have. We actually understand what Jayden's going through. Patricia is quiet for a long moment. Then if I push this through, and it falls apart, it's not just your careers on the line. It's Jayden's entire future. Can you live with that pressure? Ethan and Clara look at each other. Then, simultaneously, they nod. We can, Clara says. We will, Ethan adds. But can they really? Because as they start the foster care approval process, the cracks in their hasty foundation begin to show. They're asked to attend counseling sessions, to prove they're a stable couple. They're asked about their relationship history, their conflict resolution skills, their long-term plans. And every question exposes how much they're still strangers in so many ways. One night, during a particularly brutal counseling session, the therapist asks them point blank, what happens if this relationship ends? You'll have tied your identities to being Jayden's parents. What happens to him if you two don't work out? The question haunts Ethan for days. What if they're making a terrible mistake? What if they're so desperate to save Jayden that they're building something that can't sustain itself? What if loving this kid means ruining him when they inevitably fall apart? He voices these fears to Miguel over beers one evening. Miguel, who's watched this whole thing unfold with a mixture of pride and concern. You're scared, Miguel observes. Terrified. Good. That means you actually care. The question isn't whether you're scared. It's whether you're brave enough to try anyway. What if I hurt them? Jayden and Clara both. What if you save them? What if they save you? You spent 17 years convinced you used up all your chances at happiness, hermano. What if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? The question follows Ethan home, follows him through sleepless nights, follows him into week 15, when Jayden's foster parents officially file for his removal. Time's running out. They have 2 weeks to get approved as emergency foster parents. Or Jayden goes into the group home. And if he goes into the group home, Ethan knows from everything he's learned about the system, Jayden will fall through the cracks. He'll age out with nothing. He'll become another statistic. Another kid the system failed. Ethan can't let that happen. Won't let that happen. But how far are you willing to go to save someone? How much of yourself are you willing to risk? How do you know the difference between love and codependency? between helping and enabling, between showing up and losing yourself completely. And here's the question that will determine everything. When you've spent your entire life being what other people need, how do you learn to be what you need? How do you save someone without sacrificing yourself? Is it even possible? Because Ethan's about to find out the hard way that sometimes the people we're trying to save end up saving us instead. Here's the truth. Nobody tells you about rock bottom. Sometimes you have to hit it before you can finally learn to climb. Ethan sits alone in his apartment at 3 a.m, surrounded by paperwork that will determine the rest of Jayden's life. Foster care applications, background checks, financial statements, character references. Every form is a reminder of the same question that's been haunting him for weeks. Is he doing this for Jayden? Or is he doing this because he's terrified of being alone again? And does the answer even matter if the result is the same? Giving a kid a home. His phone buzzes. A text from Clara. Can't sleep either. He types back, "Too much riding on this." Her response comes immediately. "We've got this. Trust me." But trust is exactly what Ethan's struggling with. Not trust in Clara. She's proven herself 100 times over. Trust in himself. Trust that he's capable of being more than just a survivor. Trust that he deserves the family he's trying to build. Because here's what 17 years of sacrifice taught him. When you spend your entire life being useful, you forget how to be loved. And now, when love is being offered, from Clara, from Jayden, from a future that looks nothing like the prison he's been living in, he doesn't know if he's brave enough to accept it. The next morning, they have their final home evaluation. A social worker named Rebecca, who's seen everything, and believes nothing shows up at Ethan's apartment with a clipboard and the kind of skeptical expression that says she's already decided they'll fail. She walks through the small space, noting the worn furniture, the outdated kitchen, the single bedroom that Ethan would need to convert into 2 if Jayden moves in. "This is cozy," Rebecca says, which is professional code for inadequate. "It's what I have," Ethan responds, trying not to sound defensive. "And Miss Martinez, you're planning to move in as well." Clara, standing beside Ethan with her hand in his, nods. "Yes, we're planning to find a larger place together. But for the emergency placement, we can make this work." Rebecca makes a note. "You've known each other for how long?" 4 months, Clara admits. "And you're willing to commit to fostering a high-needs teenager together after 4 months of dating." The question is designed to expose the cracks in their foundation. But something shifts in that moment. Ethan looks at Clara, really looks at her, and sees someone who's fought her entire life to believe good things can happen. Someone who's been let down and abandoned and rejected, just like him, just like Jayden. Someone who's choosing to build something beautiful out of broken pieces, despite knowing it might fall apart. "Yes," Ethan says firmly, "we are." Why? It's such a simple question, such a loaded question. Ethan could give the professional answer, the one about providing stability and understanding and a trauma-informed home. But instead, he gives the truth. "Because 4 months ago I was just existing, going through the motions, convinced my life was already over at 32. Then I met Jayden, and he reminded me what it feels like to have purpose. Then I met Clara, and she reminded me what it feels like to have hope. And maybe that's, quote, not a conventional timeline for building a family. But nothing about any of our lives has been conventional. We're three people who the system failed, trying to build something the system says can't work. And I'd rather try and fail than spend the rest of my life wondering, what if? Rebecca studies him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiles. You know what? I believe you. The board might not. Your timeline is rushed and your situation is complicated. But I've been doing this job for 20 years, and I can tell when someone's running a game versus when someone actually gives a damn. You give a damn. Both of you. She closes her folder. I'm recommending approval for emergency placement. But Mr. Hayes, Miss Martinez, the real work starts after Jayden moves in. The honeymoon period will end. The trauma will surface. The hard days will outnumber the good days for a while. Are you prepared for that? No, Ethan admits. But we're committed anyway. 2 days later, they get the call. They're approved. Jayden can move in within the week. And suddenly, the abstract idea becomes terrifyingly real. They're about to become parents together, and they barely know how to be a couple. That night, Ethan and Clara sit on his couch, both processing the magnitude of what they've just agreed to. The silence between them isn't uncomfortable. It's weighted with all the unspoken fears and hopes that come with life-changing decisions. Are we insane? Clara finally asks. Probably, Ethan admits, but maybe that's okay. Maybe sane people don't change the world. She laughs, but it's tinged with nervousness. I'm terrified I'll mess this up, that I'll be a terrible parent, that I'll repeat all the mistakes my foster parents made. You won't. How do you know? Because you're aware enough to worry about it. The people who mess up are the ones who think they have all the answers. Clara leans her head on his shoulder, and for a moment they just breathe together, finding courage in proximity. Then she says something that changes everything. I think I'm falling in love with you, and that terrifies me more than anything else. Ethan's breath catches. When was the last time someone said those words to him? Has anyone ever said those words to him? He wants to say them back, but they catch in his throat, tangled up with 17 years of believing he doesn't deserve them. You don't have to say it back, Clara continues softly. I just needed you to know, because we're about to do this incredibly hard thing together. And I need you to know it's real for me. Not just the fostering. Us, this, whatever we're building. Ethan turns to face her, cupping her face in his hands. I don't know how to do this. Be someone's partner. Let someone see me when I'm falling apart. Trust that you won't leave when things get hard. Then we'll learn together. Just like we're learning how to be parents together. Just like we're learning how to heal together. He kisses her then, and it's not the first time they've kissed, but it's the first time it feels like a promise, like a choice, like the beginning of something neither of them fully understands, but both are willing to build anyway. The day Jayden moves in is chaos. Alex and Mia fly in to help, and they bring furniture, a bed frame, a desk, a bookshelf, things they've been saving for years, waiting for Ethan to finally build a life that requires more than the bare minimum. Watching his siblings carry boxes into his apartment, seeing them smile and joke and conspire with Clara about decorating Jayden's new room, Ethan realizes something profound. He didn't fail them. He succeeded. And their gratitude isn't just words. It's action. It's showing up. It's giving back what he gave them all those years ago. "You okay?" Mia asks, finding Ethan standing alone in the hallway, overwhelmed. "I don't know. This is real now." "Yeah, it is. And you're going to be amazing at it. Again, what if I'm not? What if I already gave everything away and there's nothing left?" Mia takes his hand, squeezing tight. "Ethan, you've been running on empty for so long that you forgot what full feels like. But look around. Clara, Jayden, me and Alex. We're not taking from you. We're filling you up. Let us..." When Jayden arrives with his single duffel bag containing everything he owns, he stands in the doorway looking simultaneously hopeful and terrified. This is his 4th placement in a year. He's learned not to unpack completely, not to get comfortable, not to believe it's permanent. But then he sees his room, painted blue, his favorite color, posters on the wall of bands he mentioned once in passing, a desk where he do homework, a bookshelf waiting to be filled, and on the bed, a framed photo, Ethan, Clara, and Jayden at the construction site, all smiling, covered in sawdust, looking like a family. "This is mine?" Jayden's voice cracks. "This is yours," Clara confirms. "For as long as you need it. For as long as you want it. What if I mess up again?" Ethan kneels in front of him, meeting his eyes. "Then we'll figure it out together." That's what families do. They mess up and they fix it. They hurt each other and they forgive. They fall apart and they rebuild. But they don't give up. Not on each other. Never on each other. Jayden drops his duffel bag and throws his arms around Ethan, holding on like he's drowning, and Ethan is the only solid thing in a churning ocean. And maybe that's exactly what's happening. Maybe they're all drowning a little bit. And maybe holding on to each other is the only way any of them survive. The first few weeks are exactly as hard as Rebecca warned them. Jayden tests boundaries constantly, staying out past curfew, skipping homework, pushing back against rules just to see if they'll give up on him. There are fights. There are slammed doors. There are nights when Ethan and Clara collapse into bed, exhausted and questioning everything. But there are also breakthroughs. The night Jayden comes home from school, excited because he got an A on a test and wants to show them. The morning he makes breakfast for all 3 of them without being asked. The afternoon, he introduces them to his friends as my parents, without hesitation or shame. The evening he tells Ethan about a girl he likes and asks for advice, and Ethan realizes he's being trusted with something precious. 3 months in, Ethan enrolls in night classes. Engineering, the dream he buried at 15. Clara insists on rearranging schedules to make it work, and Jayden surprises everyone by taking his homework seriously so he can study alongside Ethan at the kitchen table. They become a unit defined by mutual support. Clara helping Jayden with English papers, Jayden helping Ethan with math homework, Ethan helping Clara decompress after brutal days at work. It's not perfect. They argue about chores and boundaries, and whose turn it is to cook dinner. They have bad days, where everyone's trauma surfaces at once, and the apartment feels too small for all their collective wounds. But they show up every single day. They choose each other. And, slowly, the good days start outnumbering the hard ones. 6 months in, on a random Tuesday evening, they're sitting around the dinner table, take out Chinese, because no one felt like cooking. And Jayden looks up and says, "I want you to adopt me. For real, not just fostering. I want this to be permanent." The words hang in the air like a prayer. Clara's eyes fill with tears. Ethan's throat tightens with emotion too big for words. "Are you sure?" Clara manages to ask. "I've never been more sure of anything. You guys show up every day. Even when I'm difficult. Even when I push you away. You just keep showing up. And I don't want to wonder anymore if this is temporary. I want it to be real. I want to be your son." Ethan reaches across the table, taking Jayden's hand. "You already are." 1 year after that first meeting in the community center, they stand in a courthouse in front of a judge who's seen too many broken families to be impressed by much. But when she asks Jayden if this is what he wants, his answer is immediate and certain. Yes. They're my family. They chose me. I choose them back. The gavel comes down. The paperwork is signed. And just like that, 3 people who the system said were too broken, too traumatized, too complicated become a family. Not through biology, not through perfection, but through choice, through showing up, through believing that love isn't something you're entitled to. It's something you build, one imperfect day at a time. Outside the courthouse, Alex and Mia are waiting with balloons and stupid grins and probably embarrassing signs. Miguel is there with his wife and kids, cheering like they've won the lottery. Rebecca, the social worker who believed in them, gives Ethan a hug and whispers, "You did it. You actually did it." But Ethan knows the truth. He didn't do it alone. Clara taught him that letting someone in isn't weakness. Jayden taught him that it's never too late for second chances. His siblings taught him that love multiplies rather than divides. And all of them together taught him the most important lesson. Surviving isn't the same as living, and he finally knows the difference. That night, back in their new apartment, they moved to a bigger place after the adoption. Ethan finds Clara on the balcony, looking at the stars. He wraps his arms around her from behind, and they stand there in comfortable silence. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asks. "A year ago, did you imagine any of this?" "No. I was convinced my life was over. And now I think maybe it's just beginning." She turns in his arms, smiling. "I love you. I know I said it first before, but I'm saying it again. I love you, Ethan Hayes. I love the way you show up. I love the way you let us in, even though it terrifies you. I love the family we built together." And this time, the words don't catch in his throat. This time, he knows he deserves them. This time, he says them back. "I love you too. I love all of this, and I'm not scared anymore." It's not entirely true. He's still scared sometimes. Scared of messing up. Scared of losing what he's built. Scared that happiness, this profound, can't possibly last. But the difference now is that fear doesn't paralyze him. It motivates him. It reminds him that what he has is worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth choosing every single day. Inside, they hear Jayden laughing at something on his phone, and the sound fills the apartment with warmth. This is what home sounds like. Not silence, not emptiness, but life. Messy, imperfect, beautiful life. Ethan spent 17 years believing his story ended when his parents died, that everything after was just an epilogue, a long, slow decline into nothingness. But he was wrong. His story didn't end that night. It paused, and now, finally, it's starting again. Not a fairy tale where everything is perfect, but a real story where broken people find each other and build something worth believing in. Because it's never too late. It's never too late to heal. It's never too late to love. It's never too late to choose yourself while choosing others. It's never too late to build a family from broken pieces and call it beautiful. It's never too late to learn that showing up for others, for yourself, for the life you actually want, is the bravest thing you can do. Ethan's story isn't unique. Somewhere someone is reading this and thinking about their own sacrifices, their own wounds, their own belief that it's too late for happiness. But here's what Ethan learned. And here's what I hope you learn too. Your past doesn't define your future. Your scars don't disqualify you from love. Your survival isn't the end of your story. It's the foundation for everything that comes next. Show up for the people who need you, the people who love you, but most importantly, for yourself, because you deserve more than just surviving. You deserve to actually live. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like Ethan? Like you've sacrificed so much that there's nothing left for yourself? Or maybe you've been Jayden, waiting for someone to finally choose you. Drop your story in the comments. Share which character you related to most and why. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe, because next week we're diving into another romance that proves love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up when it matters most. Your story isn't over. Remember that. And I'll see you in the next one.